Hello everybody, welcome back to Strictly Story Mode Gaming. Today we will dive deep into one of the loveliest non-violent, non-verbal titles in gaming. Gris from Nomada Studios has created a unique, sensory-rich 2D platformer that takes you on an emotional journey of sorrow and healing without using a single word. The story arc is of a young girl coping with the devastating grief after the death of a beloved female who is her mother or a mother figure. Game designers intentionally abstracted the story to let the player project their own life experience with loss and depression to drive a deeper, more personal playthrough. I've read on forums of players relating how the game brought them tears, but also healing. There also was a small minority who clearly didn't feel the feels and rated the game as boring. I don't know how you can't be moved by the sheer beauty and artistry of the soundscape and exquisite visuals, but I totally fell under its spell. Gris is the brainchild of painter Conrad Rosé, who initially envisioned a game where a girl starts off in a bleak world devoid of color, and through her journey, colors are added back one by one. And it was really only by a chance encounter with game developers at a bar in Barcelona that formed Nomada Studios to bring Gris to fruition. To fulfill Rosé's vision, Gris creates a color-coded emotional landscape using the 5 stages of grief modeled 50 years ago by Swiss psychiatrist Elisabeth Kübler-Ross. Whether or not you agree with the validity of her model, these stages provide an effective structure to push the linear narrative forward. The first stage of denial puts us in a bleak world of black and white with shades of the titular color. Gris is gray in Spanish and also the name of the girl. The terrain is seemingly barren with only rocks and architectural ruins, but there are signs of life here. Birds were in the sky, and even rock critters scurry back and forth. Gris only spends a brief time here as she has to move on and face her new reality. In the second stage of anger, the girl is buffeted by a blinding rage of storms she must overcome to go forward. Reflecting that grieving is a confusing and disorderly process, Gris will make progress only to regress and circle back to previous negative emotions. In the chapter for anger, she falls into a cavern, relapsing into a state of denial, but again, she must face the truth no matter how painful, and is thrust out into the world of anger, which she must navigate a way forward. In the third stage of bargaining, this chapter begins as a more lighthearted reprieve where Gris begins healing. The architectural ruins are somewhat restored. The dead trees and plants of the previous chapters have sprouted green, and venturing forth will take her to a green forest full of life. Her anger is still there and will return in bouts, but she's able to feel a sense of hope. The girl reaches out and even makes a little green apple-munching friend who helps her on her journey. Those who have undergone a cycle of grieving know that you can have quiet and happy moments one instant, then be whipped back into a maelstrom of dark, destructive emotions and be dragged deep down into depression. And the game captures this roller coaster of emotions much better than the pipeline stages of grief can define. Rain and hues of blue signal her growing sorrow and depression. Instead of feeling empathetic sadness, I found the blue tones to be really soothing. Gris will descend physically into the depths of depression, dropping through caverns and reaching the ocean floor bottom. Ironically, this depression chapter gave me the most joy as swimming underwater lets you move swiftly and freely in a way your character cannot on land. The final stage of the Kübler-Ross model is acceptance, which, like the rest of the stages, takes time to process and strengthen. Her world has been turned upside down, but Gris learns to navigate this new normal. As she grows more and more accepting of her loss, the world grows with sumptuous abundance and lushness, all colors now intermingled. It appears acceptance has neutralized the negative powers of the original colors by being mixed with yellow. Beyond color, there are so many layers to Gris that build up the symbolic progression of her healing, rebuilding the architecture from ruins to full glory, enriching the ecosystem from the desert to lushness. Yet, it's the progression of refinement in drawing styles that really caught my eyes. The earlier chapters contain a deliberate sketch style with thicker, unruly lines, and the drawing outlines get increasingly thinner, with the last chapter having the thinnest lines with the highest amount of object detail. Gris is so visually rich in details and layers of meaning, I know I've left out much. This game is knee-deep in symbolism, which makes for a stimulating metagame hunting for hidden meaning. But some are pretty obvious, and one of the most intense symbols appears when too many small negative thoughts gather and coalesce to a ferocious antagonist. My first natural gamer instinct is to fight, but Gris doesn't let you. No weapons, no combat, no health bar, hence no death in the game. More on that later. So back to the symbolism. It's only by channeling and working with this negative force that you can push forward. I know it sounds totally cheesy to verbalize this, but Gris reinforces such nuggets of wisdom repeatedly in a compelling, non-dairy way. Gris not only loads you up visually with symbolism, but does so with the actual platforming mechanics that physically mimic her struggles. The game teaches you to make yourself strong by becoming a square block in order to withstand storms or angry shrieks. This block is used repeatedly to break through barriers and solve environmental puzzles. But you can use the block mechanic for no other reason than it's satisfying to stomp about, and Nomada Studios would sometimes reward you with an enchanting animation. Even with minimal platforming mechanics, Gris deploys them so meaningfully, and even this simple jumping mechanic combined with color can convey a deeper message. These red shapes transform controlled by each time you jump, unlike the other challenges that are timer-based. This is where I had an ah moment. This game is showing you that instead of trying to root out your anger, you can harness it and control it to go forward in your healing. Why does it sound so corny when I say it out loud? Gris works beautifully because they don't tell but show. As an artistic aesthetic experience, Gris is one of the best, surpassing Journey and equal to Abzu. But Gris as a platformer, while technically not as admirable, is still unique among games in the way mechanics have been designed meaningfully for emotional impact. For me, the one mechanic I found surprisingly moving was singing. At the prologue of the game, the girl sings in a world of harmonious color. After the tragedy, she loses not only color, but her ability to sing, which becomes a critical thread in regaining her joy. Earlier in her grieving, when you push the sing button, she will make heartbreaking gasps as she is saying, "No, I can't." Game doesn't ask you to do this, and I pushed that button purely by accident. Her gasps of despair are the only times you hear her real voice. And with that, Gris snuck into that sensitive part of my heart that games rarely go. So I found it truly moving when the girl finally does get to sing, which now will cause flower buds to blossom. I know a lot of non-gaming friends who would love this type of experience but might not play because it is, after all, a platformer. So, how accessible is it? Gris, while not the hardcore platforming of Ori or Hollow Knight, it wasn't entirely easy. I cursed a little more than I was expecting for such an overall ambient and relaxing experience, as Gris had a few precision platforming challenges that required pinpoint accuracy with perfect timing. I used a Sony DualShock controller on my PC playing at 4K resolution. Keyboard and mouse probably ramps up the difficulty considerably on some of the challenges. A mobile version is available on iOS, and I have read the App Store reviews, unfortunately, that the screen touch controllers are a bit fiddly. I'd have to try the mobile version to see if it's worth gifting to friends, but I imagine seeing all the glorious detail in 4K is currently the best way to experience Gris. Before I wrap things up, I wanted to touch on the unusual lack of death mechanic in Gris. Dying, whether from the environment or combat, is the most common game loop in platformers. Games like Limbo take perverse pleasure in gruesome ways to kill a character. and it's hard to make death tragic when your player character dies constantly. Gris spares you the mortification of death, as that would dilute and trivialize the one death the girl is grieving over. There is no punishment for failing besides having to redo something over and over, and the game has gentle ways of bringing you back. I stretched this game over a week to play a chapter a night. Even if you could finish this game in one sitting, I think it's like eating too much dessert. I wanted to better appreciate every new chapter of beauty with fresh eyes and ears, and I was so happy I drew it out. A game like Gris gets released so rarely, I have to savor it. I truly hope you play this incredible game for yourself, as the videos don't do justice to the magic of actual gameplay. I recorded reams of long-running beautiful clips that I couldn't use, so I will put a link in the comments when I upload them. I leave you now with my favorite chase sequence. Dear friends, thank you for joining me. Let's meet again in the next world.